Andrew, you have a slightly different approach with your algorithmic trading firm. Do you want to share more about kind of how you're working with institutions? Who are you seeing the demand from?
Yeah, so I look at quote-unquote institutions or corporations or those type of entities in a different way. The case could be made that this entire whale room is filled with folks that should have access to institutional tools, that should consider the way that they manage their Bitcoin. They should do it, as an institution does it. I'm reminded of a story that I heard maybe about 4 weeks ago from my co-founder and the CEO of Arch Public, Tilman Holloway. He was talking about the fact that about 10 years ago, there were maybe about 7,500 banks that existed in the United States. More than 8% of those banks over that period of time have failed for one reason or another. They've either gone bankrupt, they've failed. Silicon Valley Bank was really, a big story a couple of years ago associated with, by the way, crypto companies. So the question then becomes, if you're a Bitcoin native individual, whether you're a corporation, whether you're an institution, or whether you're somebody that has a meaningful stack of Bitcoin, you're keeping your cash in entities that allow you to keep up to $250,000 that's insured. So the question then becomes, what is risk, right? What's the risk associated with Bitcoin going from where we are to zero versus one of the 4 or 5 or 7 or 8 banks that you keep just $250,000 in failing, and you're losing that capital above that number? To me, from a corporate standpoint, from an institutional standpoint, from a high net worth standpoint, that's a starting point for your Bitcoin strategy. Whether you're an institution, whether you're a corporation, or whether you're a high net worth individual, you better have a strategy that protects your capital. Bitcoin is protection of your capital. There's never been a $2 trillion or more dollar asset that's gone to zero, ever. That's never happened. So Bitcoin is not going to zero. There's 0% chance that that ever happens, but there is a chance that one of your banks goes to zero over the next 5 to 7 years. So plan accordingly is the idea. Price follows opportunity, and right now we're seeing extraordinary opportunity associated with Bitcoin. Why are we seeing it? We are seeing corporations en masse move to a Bitcoin treasury type of opportunity. I'm not talking about just pure play Bitcoin treasury companies where their entire business model is simply to just buy Bitcoin and that's all that they do. I'm talking about sizable corporations that begin putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet at 5, 10, 15%. That's a movement that is going to grow and grow and grow. Proof that it's grown. 1 year ago, only about 30 S&P 500 companies, public companies, were doing that. We're now up to 75 publicly traded companies that are now putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That is a doubling over the past year. We're probably going to see 200 companies doing it over the next year. I've been very, very public about where I think Bitcoin is going. If you follow my, ridiculous Twitter feed, you're going to see that I've said many, many times that I think in Q4 of this year will be above 250K. I also think that we're going to see significant announcements at this conference over the next 2.5 days that speak to exactly what I'm talking about.
Given, your firm, if you could talk operationally about how do, logistically companies get started with trading technology, with,
Yes,
custody,
so, we build products that, frankly focus on our belief in Bitcoin, right? So our products are not binary strategies or binary automation or binary algorithms that are trying to take a trade in Bitcoin and create a return. What they're doing is they're accumulating Bitcoin over time, and they're also generating cash yield. And they're able to do that with spot Bitcoin, no leverage, no lending. right? So you hold custody, you keep control of your asset, but if you're a Bitcoin believer, you're accumulating more and more and more and more Bitcoin over time. I'll give you an example. Our team put a case study together from February 1st until last Friday. If you were using just our arbitrage strategy, this is what happened with $100,000. You ended up with almost 2 Bitcoin, okay? You generated $21,000 in cash yield. Again, this is just 4 months. And your average Bitcoin price for that 2 Bitcoin you accumulated was $83,000. So that's not just a strategy for corporates. That's not just a strategy for Michael Saylor. That's not just a strategy for institutions. That's a strategy that everybody in this room should be using. And oh, by the way, it's the reason why we have a free version of that strategy. So you take the emotions out. You take the what ifs out. You take the Bitcoin's crashing to 77, what should I do out. Everything is automated. If a trade needs to happen at 2:30 in the morning or when John's in court, the trades actually happen. You end up with more Bitcoin. You end up with more cash yield. You can take that cash yield and put it back into Bitcoin. Either way, no matter what happens to Bitcoin price, if it goes to 140, you benefit. If it goes to 60, you're stacking more without having to think about it. Extraordinary products that give you the opportunity to use institutional level tech, right? There's a reason why the New York Stock Exchange doesn't have 50,000 people on the floor anymore. It's all automated. There's 15 people on the floor now, and they all work at business networks. Everything is automated in TradFi. Automation needs to come to Bitcoin, and it needs to come to this space fast, so that's what we're doing.
And if you are an absolute shitty trader like me,
That's right.
you
That's
want
right.
that. Trust me.